Yeah, we had a little technical difficulty. I hope everything will be okay now. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're on page 500. The date is Sunday, August 3rd, 1884. It's chapter 26, Festival at Adhar's house. We just began this last time, and it actually begins in Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar. Later in the chapter, it'll go to Adhar's house. And today is Swamiji's birthday, Swami Vivekananda's birthday according to the Western calendar, and National Youth Day in India. And I know they have a nice celebration at the Institute of Culture today. I've been there for that before. There's a huge statue of Swamiji outside, and they put a big garland around his neck and everything. And Max Roach's 100th anniversary today. So Sri Ramakrishna has been talking about the Kundalini. The setting is that a party of Bauls from Shibpur had come, and some devotees from Bhawanipur, and Balaram and M were in the room. Rakal, Latu, and Harish were then living with the master. They were also there. I mentioned a little bit about the Bauls last time. They're a very interesting mixture and different types and different traditions. Some come from the Vaishnava tradition, growing out of the Chaitanya Dev movement. Some from the Shakta tradition, worshippers of Divine Mother, and some are Sufi tradition of Islam. And they can live all together in great harmony, outside of the pale of society usually. And we'll see that there'll be songs, all different types of songs. They're completely non-sectarian that way. They like all of these different traditions, very free souls, and many beautiful songs have come out of that tradition, very highly symbolic language. And a lot of it having to do with Kundalini. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is talking about that. When the Kundalini rises to the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus at the top of the head, and the mind goes into samadhi, the aspirant loses all consciousness of the outer world. He can no longer retain his physical body. If milk is poured into his mouth, it runs out again. In that state, the life breath lingers for 21 days and then passes out. Entering the black waters of the ocean, the ship never comes back. But the Ishvara Kotis, such as the incarnations of God, can come down from the state of samadhi. They can descend from this exalted state because they like to live in the company of devotees and enjoy the love of God. God retains in them the ego of knowledge or the ego of devotion so that they may teach men. Their minds move between the sixth and the seventh planes. They run a boat race back and forth, as it were, between these two planes. This is a very common theme that we find throughout the gospel. Sri Ramakrishna is talking about this very rare type of nirvikalpa samadhi. We're not talking about the ordinary bhava, God consciousness, some type of realization. According to this idea, this theory of Kundalini, that rising to Sahasrara really means the very highest possible type of samadhi. That's a very rare thing. Now we sometimes make the mistake of thinking that samadhi in 40 days, you can take a course, that if only we can hold the mind quiet for a little bit longer, that we can get it. What we're talking about here, what Sri Ramakrishna is talking about here, is a very, very rare thing. And sometimes he'll talk about this as reserved for those who follow the path of yoga, because if we take this very seriously, that this samadhi is the culmination of spiritual practice, then we may think that we're trying to reach a goal that will bring the end of our life. We'll end into that state, we won't come back, and we'll give up the body in 21 days. So Sri Ramakrishna will talk very often about how to live in the world after realizing God. So that means that this isn't the only type of God realization, that samadhi, that we're aspiring to something which will mean the body will wither away after 21 days. This is something that will come to very few people, and will not come as long as there's the slightest desire or any karma. So we can say, if we want to take the two theories, samadhi and the karma theory, that prarabdha karma will have to be all finished and exhausted before one can enter into that state, which would mean the body is going to fall anyhow, if we want to look at it that way. Or we can simply say that this state is one in which soul and body are already separate in that state. The bird has left the cage, there's no getting it back in. Sri Ramakrishna gives some nice examples. This black water. So if suppose we're swimmers, and we know that we can swim for about an hour, and then we'll get exhausted. If we're swimming in one direction, we know after a half hour we have to turn around and come back. If we go further, we know there's the danger that we won't make it. Or the bird on the mast. He flies as far as he can fly, knowing that if he doesn't turn back, that the wings will get tired and he'll die. He won't be able to get back at all. We're diving deep in the ocean, that if we stay there too long, like the salt dog will melt and become one with the ocean. So there's no coming back. But this is a very rare type of thing. And the impression that I get, at least, is that during the time of Sri Ramakrishna, it was commonly understood that no one comes back from the state of samadhi. That this is really that final state in which body and soul are completely separate. We have the illustration of the potter's wheel and the jar, that once the pot is made, it's taken off of the wheel, and then the wheel will just spin without the potter spinning it anymore. So what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that process of that wheel slowing down will take 21 days. And the free soul is separate from that already. So this type of samadhi is not something that we should really have any realistic goal for, to attain this type of samadhi, and it's not necessary. Sri Ramakrishna will also talk about the path of devotion. There are states of devotion that we also we wouldn't be able to handle them, even if we could reach them. And the whole body would be destroyed and everything. So Sri Ramakrishna will talk about this as kind of a dividing line between the ordinary souls and those who have some special mission in life, or have some really tremendous desire to help other people. We get the illustration of four friends that are walking down the road, and there's a high wall on one side, and they hear music and singing and dancing and everything. And curious, one by one they climb to the top of the wall, and the joy of the scene that they see is so enchanting that they're helpless to do anything but jump over. And then he says, but the last one, he'll think that, no, let me go back and tell everyone how much joy there is on the other side. So that's the one that goes back. Now, in Buddhist tradition, this will be the bodhisattva. And anybody can do it. Anybody who has that tremendous heart, and it's not restricted to any companion of an avatar or anything like that. But Sri Ramakrishna, he gives kind of a list of special people that can do it. Those who come to this world without any past karma. If we want to say what's the real difference between what they call an avatar or an Ishwarakoti or Nityasiddha and an ordinary person, that main difference, uh, of course, there'll be many differences just in the degree of purity and spiritual power and everything. But if we want to look at it from kind of a technical point of view, that ordinarily we're born in this world because we have karma, because we didn't reach the final goal in the past lifetime, and there's some desires there, so we're born that way. Whereas this other class, we can put them all together if we want to say that Bodhisattva, we want to say the avatar, Ishwarakoti, or these special souls, Adhikarika Purushas. This is the term that Swami Atmajnananda uses in his introduction to the Great Master. Adhikarika, it just means a special soul, someone who has some special mission in life and some special power and everything, that we can say, choose to be born, rather being born out of the force of past karma. So, like Swamiji says his prayer, may I be born again and again. And so for him, it would be a simple choice. So these are the ones that are beyond this karmic pull or something. So they can come back if they like, and generally these special souls have this. They come only for that purpose, the welfare of others. So they can come back. Now, Sri Ramakrishna will give all sorts of other little footnotes to this. Who can come back 21 days? What type of samadhi? Shukadeva, did he really drink 3 drops of the ocean? If he had gone in, what would have happened? So it's a little bit murky sometimes. Now, we'll see as we go on. He says, after attaining samadhi, some souls of their own accord. Now he's saying some souls, all right, of their own accord, keep the ego of knowledge. So now we're getting a little bit of an impression that it is that one friend who has a little bit of a choice, who can say, no, let me go back. But we'll see, these some souls are also very special. They're not, he won't give a list of ordinary people. But it's interesting that this is one of the few places where usually he'll say only these Ishwarakotis and everything, but after attaining samadhi, some souls of their own accord keep the ego of knowledge. Now later he'll say ego of devotion also, but keep the ego of knowledge. But that ego does not create any attachment. It is like a line drawn on the water. So whether it's these few people coming back from nirvikalpa samadhi or those coming back from some type of enlightenment experience, that Sri Ramakrishna gives ample scope for this whole idea of the Jivan Mukta, the free soul, someone who attains a realization, realizes God. He usually use that simple language. Someone will realize God and then live in the world, because he'll say over and over again, first realize God, then live in the world. So it's not that realizing God means that we enter into this nirvikalpa samadhi and pass away out of that. That may be how we leave at the end. Our Swami Brahmarupananji used to talk about exit strategy. There's one exit strategy. So here he's saying that after attaining samadhi, some souls of their own accord keep the ego of knowledge, but that ego does not create any attachment. It is like a line drawn on the water. I sometimes wonder that these questions are interesting because Ramakrishna says so many things about it, but from a very practical point of view, we're trying to get a few drops of devotion, and we're talking about this is something that's we're in kindergarten. We're talking about the final exam for a PhD. Yeah, we really don't have to worry about this. Yeah. But we should have that faith that these things are possible. That's also true. And there are all levels of samadhi that we can experience, that we can have. It's just this This nirvikalpa samadhi, the mind is gone even. There's no active mind at that time. So no way to come back. Sri Ramakrishna, he'll explain it more. Divine Mother will bring us back, or him back. Hanuman kept the servant ego after realizing God in both his personal and his impersonal aspects. He thought of himself as the servant of God. Great sages such as Narada, Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara, after attaining the knowledge of Brahman, kept the servant ego and the ego of devotion. So first he said that some keep the ego of knowledge. Now he's expanding it. It can be this ego of devotion, the servant ego. And we see that this is not a list of ordinary people. These are great rishis, great sages. Yeah, we may not say that though these are companions of an avatar or anything. It's a different tradition, Vedic tradition, but these are also not ordinary people. They're like big steamships, which not only cross the ocean themselves, but carry many passengers to the other shore. Now, one other reason why these things, we should take these things a little seriously, is that it should give us a little bit of humility and understand that there are some souls that are huge containers. And we're fortunate that we're small containers because they get filled up easier. Yeah. I remember one of our swamis was talking about this Kali Yuga, and how in the Kali Yuga that everybody says how unfortunate we are born in this Kali Yuga, how difficult. But he said, no, this is much easier in this Kali Yuga because we don't have to do so much. Keep truthfulness for 12 years, wait for God for 3 days, things like that. So we should be fortunate that we are these small size containers that can be filled up more easily. Of course, those who are huge containers, they're all born full to begin with. But we should understand that we're all struggling souls. We're all struggling souls. These very rare exceptions are born perfect. Even they have to struggle. Even they have to do their spiritual practice to shake off a little bit of this dust of Maya. So how much Sri Ramakrishna had to do, how much all the direct disciples had to do, even though born perfect. There are two classes of paramahamsas, one affirming the formless reality and the other affirming God with form. Now this term, paramahamsa, Sri Ramakrishna is not using it, I don't think, in a very technical sense. The paramahamsa will be a free soul, perfectly free, God-realized soul, doesn't have to follow any conventions, won't necessarily wear anything indicating, generally there'll be monastics, but still no rules or regulations beyond everything, perfectly free souls. So there are two classes of paramahamsas, one affirming the formless reality and the other affirming God with form. Trailanga Swami believed in the formless reality. Paramahamsas like him care for their own good alone. They feel satisfied if they themselves attain the goal. Now this Trailanga Swami, he was well known in Varanasi as the living saint, really. And there are some traditions that he lived several hundred years, even. There are many other traditions that look upon him as a great saint, almost the founder of their traditions. And Sri Ramakrishna had great respect for him, and the Holy Mother met him. And Thakur would generally say, people who went to Varanasi, oh, did you meet anybody in the holy man? Trailanga Swami, or there was a Swami Bhaskarananda also, the two of them that we hear about a little bit. So Sri Ramakrishna had great respect for him also. It sounds like he's saying he's selfish, but I don't believe he's talking about that certain class, the Gyanis, that withdraw from society a little bit. He kept the silence also, but he lived there in public and helped so many people. So he was a very wonderful soul. They say Trailanga is really Trailanga Swami, that he was a Telugu speaker. Yeah, he came from South, but he never spoke, so nobody knew much about him. Yeah. Anyhow, there'll be a distinction here between the path of knowledge and the path of devotion. So let me read this again. There are two classes of paramahamsas: one affirming the formless reality, and the other affirming God with form. Now, Sri Ramakrishna is not saying that one is true and one is false. These are two aspects of the same reality. For him, there's no distinction. It's just two sides of the same coin. Trailing Swami believed in the formless reality. Paramahamsas, like him, care for their own good alone. That means they're striving for their own realization. They may withdraw from society and everything. They feel satisfied if they themselves attain the goal. But those Paramahamsas who believe in God with form keep the love of God even after attaining the knowledge of Brahman. Now, this was also another teaching of Sri Ramakrishna, that everybody attains wisdom. Everybody attains the state of oneness, no matter what path they follow. One will follow the path of knowledge, one will follow the path of devotion. Uh, at the point of meeting at the roof, then there's only that oneness and that wisdom. It's beyond wisdom, it's beyond the mind and everything. Coming back down, then the old purified samskara will still be there. So those who were devotees and worship God with form, they'll come back, they'll have the ego of devotion. Those who went through the path of knowledge, they'll come back, they'll have the ego of knowledge. And there's some really weird type of experience takes place on the way up. That's also possible. They could develop some tremendous devotion, or who knows? But this is generally the way Swami Krishna explains it. So those Paramahamsas who believe in God with form keep the love of God, even after attaining the knowledge of Brahman, so that they may teach spiritual truth to others. Now, Sri Ramakrishna gives several reasons that one is not just to teach others, but in order to keep the mind down. In his case, in order to keep the mind down, that he had to cherish a devotional attitude. So he used to explain that Divine Mother was as if telling him that you keep the mind down by cherishing devotion and keeping the company of the devotees. So bhakta and bhakti. He would say these are the two things that will keep your mind a little bit lower so that you can talk to people and live in the world and everything. And Sri Ramakrishna, he knew that he wasn't born just for his own realization, that he had some type of mission in life that wouldn't be fulfilled if the mind constantly remained in that nirvikalpa state. So he used to pray to the Divine Mother. Mother, don't give me knowledge. Knowledge of Brahman didn't mean there's knowledge of one. Knowledge of Brahman meant his mind would merge. Don't keep my mind merged in nirvikalpa samadhi, or don't keep it merged too long. Then it's hard to come back down. See, we think this nirvikalpa samadhi is just a kind of monolithic thing, that either you do it or you don't do it. And if we accept this idea that it's when the mind is perfectly still, there shouldn't be any difference. The mind is not functioning, it's not functioning. Yeah. But sometimes Sri Ramakrishna says, I was in a very deep state of samadhi. It took a long time to pull the mind back down. So even that, there may be gray areas that we know nothing about. So for Sri Ramakrishna, he went through periods before the disciples started to come, after his experience of samadhi with the Totapuri, where he says that he remained almost all of the time in that state. It's not that after this 11 months or whatever it was, 6 months in samadhi, and after Totapuri left, it wasn't that then he went back to being his normal self. There weren't many people around, not like a room full of devotees like now. And he said most of the time his mind was just gone. It's just like the balloon, the helium balloon, it goes straight up to the top, that he didn't know day or night. The mind would have to be pulled down. And that cord to pull it down was the coming of the devotees and his longing for them. This was that period when he would at night go up to the roof of the kuti and pray, Mother, pray to the devotees, where are you? I'm waiting so long. You please come. So he had that desire to give some of his riches to other people. He wasn't content to just have them and experience them. So all of these things kept his mind down a little bit. So part of it is this desire to help others. Part of it is the joy of that experience of that relationship with God. For him, it wasn't a spiritual attitude, it was real. It was something real. He felt the presence of the Divine Mother all of the time. He felt she was guiding him, holding him by the hand and everything. So the joy from that. So those paramahamsas who believe in God with form keep the love of God even after attaining the knowledge of Brahman, so that they may teach spiritual truth to others. They are like a pitcher brimful of water. See, if we go back to this idea of avatar and Ishwarakoti, the whole purpose of their birth is for other people, for the welfare of the world, to bring devotion, to set an example for other people. So they're like a pitcher brimful of water. Part of the water may be poured into another pitcher. These perfected souls describe to others the various spiritual disciplines by which they have realized God. This is why we get so many descriptions of Sri Ramakrishna's different types of realizations and experiences. Even though we know that we're told, and he would tell others, don't reveal any spiritual experiences that you have to other people, that it'll cheapen it and you'll lose the results of it. Pride will come, all of those things. He never followed that because for him, those other things were impossible. And unless there are people who can verify the truth of the spiritual practice, how it leads to spiritual experience, then who will have faith in it? So it was absolutely necessary for him to do that. And there were, of course, not the slightest trace of pride or ego. He used to say that really, I'm saying I don't feel anything special. I'm not showing off, as if he had to say that. But he so much of the teachings of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is he himself describing his spiritual practice and his spiritual realizations. And this is what gives us faith in the truth of them, and also gives us the reverence that we have for him, that he could have these so many of these completely genuine, authentic experiences. So these perfected souls describe to others the various spiritual disciplines by which they've realized God. They do this only to teach others and to help them in spiritual life. So not the slightest trace of ego. No, not that they're trying to show how wonderful they are. With great effort, men dig a well for drinking water, using spades and baskets for the purpose. After the digging is over, some throw the spades and other implements into the well, not needing them anymore, but some put them away near the well so that others may use them. Some eat mangoes secretly and remove all trace of them by wiping their mouths with a towel, but some share the fruit with others. There are sages who, even after attaining knowledge, work to help others. Now we're saying they're sages. So we don't know exactly the different categories. What is a sage? The rishis, or who knows, that are also adhikara producers. They're also of a little bit of higher class. Sri Ramakrishna doesn't mind talking about different classes of jivas. The beginners and those who've made a little progress and those have reached perfection, and there's the perfect of the perfect. These are all from the Bauls schools that they talk about these things also. So, because we're all one in spirit, but in terms of the way the mind functions and the different types of samskaras and spiritual practice, we're all different that way. We all have different degrees of spiritual power. So they're sages who, even after attaining knowledge, work to help others and also to enjoy the bliss of God in the company of devotees. So this is Ramakrishna. These three things. His life was meant to help other people, that he loved the company of the devotees, and the bliss of God realization. Then he quotes from a song, Ram Prasad song, I want to eat sugar, I don't want to be sugar. Now, this I like this idea very much, because those who devotional from a dualistic point of view will not say that it's possible to become sugar. It's only possible to taste sugar. So they won't accept this idea that one can become God, or there can be that idea of identity or complete oneness. For Sri Ramakrishna and the Shakta philosophy, actually, they accept that ultimate truth, but they also accept the fact that there's more joy and a slight separation, that little trace of ego to enjoy the relationship. So this is what that's saying, that yes, uh, I'd rather have, if we want to put it that way, I'd rather have this bhava and have this uh, feel this tremendous love for God, then let the mind get merged in the absolute. Now, who can say which is greater bliss? I mean, that's beyond everything. We don't know that nirvikalpa samadhi state. Is it a blissful state? There's always a question because there's no functioning of the mind. Blissful going into it, coming back down, filled with bliss. So there must be something to it. But we can only, how do we picture that state? We can say, well, it's like dreamless sleep state, but it's not. I mean, they're both a state where the mind is hardly functioning at all, if functionless and everything. But this nirvikalpa samadhi state, everything gets transformed. So it's not ordinary thing. It's also a blissful state with nobody to be there to experience the bliss. This is a very Buddhistic type of language, that we get this language of paradox. The gopis of Vrindavan, too, attain the knowledge of Brahman. See, this is more evidence that Sri Ramakrishna's conviction that through every path we end up with wisdom, not intellectual knowledge, but with this merging and the loss of this ego. When this ego gets eliminated through devotion or through knowledge, and then what is that state? Is oneness. So even the gopis, that their love of Krishna was so great that they would completely forget themselves. So then, where's that sense of distinction? Yeah. So the gopis of Vrindavan too attained the knowledge of Brahman, but they were not seeking it. Yeah, they didn't even want any type of uh, experience of God with form, anything like that. And they wanted the companionship of Krishna. They wanted to enjoy God, looking on themselves as his mother, his friend, his handmaid, or his lover. Okay, so this is including Yashoda and Sudama and the others. All of the different, these are all the different Vaishnava attitudes that we have. The Bauls from Shibpur began to sing to the accompaniment of a stringed instrument. This is a very common thing that they would have, the dang, 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 this ektara. Very, very nice. A line of this in the first song was, "We are sinners, redeem us, O merciful Lord." Master to the devotees. It is the attitude of a beginner to worship God out of fear. He never liked this idea that to call ourselves sinners. And when at that time, this was very, very common among the Vaishnavas of Bengal, that they like to think of themselves as, oh, we're nobody, we're nothing, very humble, and like that. And Sri Ramakrishna, he liked that fiery attitude. I've taken the name of God once. How can sin cling to me? He liked the heroic type of attitude. So he said, it is the attitude of a beginner to worship God out of fear. Please sing about God realization, songs expressing divine joy. To Rakal. How well they sang that song the other day at Nobin Yogi's house. Be drunk, O mind, be drunk with the wine of the heavenly bliss. While singing religious songs, one should not constantly refer to one's worries. One should rather feel joyous and ecstatic as one chants God's name. A devotee. Sir, won't you sing? Master, what shall I sing? Well, I may sing when the Spirit moves me. After a few minutes, the Master began to sing. His eyes were turned upward. He sang, Behold the waves of Goda's ecstatic love. Now, these Bauls, as I said before, have a very close connection with the Chaitanya Deva and with that school. So it's quite natural that seeing them, Sri Ramakrishna will be thinking of this Gauranga. Gauranga is Chaitanya Deva. But equally, he'll talk about Divine Mother. So behold, the waves of Goda's ecstatic love. Under them, all the universe lies submerged. And in his love, I too long to be drowned. O friend, Gauranga's love has swallowed me. Who else feels for our misery like Gauranga, Chaitanya Deva, dragging us from the mire of worldliness? He sang again. Dive deep, O mind, dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. This is a very good example of a Baal song, also, and with the Vrindavan in the heart and everything. Then he sang about the Divine Mother. Can everyone have the vision of Shama? Is Kali's treasure for everyone? Oh, what a pity my foolish mind will not see what is true. And then he continued, The black bee of my mind is drawn in sheer delight to the blue lotus flower of Mother Shama's feet. These are all to Mother Kali. And again, O Mother, what a machine is this that thou hast made, this human body. What pranks thou playest with this toy, 3.5 cubits high. As Sri Ramakrishna sang the last song, he went into samadhi. Now, when it says that Sri Ramakrishna went into samadhi, we have no idea what type and what his experience is, unless he comes back down and tells us. And most of the time, he's having some experience. And he'll say, "Oh, do you know what I saw in that state of samadhi? I saw Gauranga, and I saw this M was there, and Balaram." He'll say he have some type of experience. So generally, we get the feeling it's not that nirvikalpa samadhi, that because it's triggered by something devotional. Everything depends on what triggers things. This was that udipana idea. For Sri Ramakrishna, any little thing could trigger a type of spiritual emotion, which would send the mind upward. And again, this nirvikalpa samadhi, this is a yogic type of thing. That if these things are triggered by a tremendous feeling of love and devotion, then the mind won't be empty. The mind will be empty of ordinary type of thinking, but it'll be the ability to experience, to feel love and to experience divine visions and things will be there. So, as Ramakrishna sang the last song, he went into samadhi. The devotees sat speechless, gazing at his radiant figure. After some time, he regained partial consciousness of the world and began to talk to the Divine Mother. So, when Sri Ramakrishna, when he went up, then when he comes down, he has to pass through all the other planes. Very rarely does he go straight from that samadhi to the ordinary plane. He'll be in some ecstatic mood for a while. This nesha, this intoxication will remain. And he'll speak from that state. The master said, "Mother, please come down from up there." So this means he's feeling a Kundalini power. Is also thought of as Divine Mother. Kundalini power is going up to the top. He wants it to come down a little so he can talk to everybody. "Please do come down," he said. "Don't torment me that way. Be still, Mother, and sit down." What he means, God knows. "Oh, Mother, everybody's future is determined by the tendencies of his previous births. What shall I say to these people? Nothing can be achieved without discrimination and renunciation." Now, we don't know exactly who he's talking about here. To these people, probably these Bauls who have come. The others are almost his hand-chosen disciples. But this is another part of this idea that there are different classes of jivas. There'll be some who will be impervious to spiritual instructions and spiritual company, that it just won't penetrate. They can go, and it happens so many times that a devotee will bring a friend, and the friend will be there sitting and hearing the same thing that everyone else is hearing, and be perfectly bored, and say, "When can we leave? We have to sit through all of this." Yeah. So uh, for people like that, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that don't bring anyone and everyone here. It won't serve any purpose. Yeah. Other theory is that let them hear it once, and later, when the time is right, they may remember that they heard something. Like this. Another here, I think this was, of course, we read about this in the with the parables of Jesus, that he threw all the seeds, knowing that some would land on stone, and that some would land in fallow earth, and some in good earth, and those would take root. Yeah, so he didn't mind, and uh, Swami Vijnanananda had this theory also. He used to give mantra to small children sometimes, and they would ask, "Can they really appreciate it? They know what they're getting." And he would say, "If you give someone a valuable gem and they put it in their pocket, they may not know that they have it, but one day they'll pull it out and realize, oh, I have this valuable gem." So then it'll start to bear fruit. Anyhow, there are different ways of looking at all of this, but now he's in this ecstatic mood, so he can see the stature of the people, spiritual level that they've reached who are there. So it must be referring to these vowels, and that many, see the two classes of vowels. Some led monastic lives. Some were like these wandering monks and things, and others were householders and would have their family life and everything. And then there were others that would also uh, do this type of left-handed sadhana, things like that. So different classes also. But everybody's future is determined by the tendencies of his previous births. This determined, it means that, first of all, uh, there's a type of prarabdha karma that was responsible for the circumstances of our birth. That can't be changed. That can't be changed. It was already done. We're already born into that family. We're born at a certain time, place, and everything. There are certain tendencies that we come with that will almost remain with us throughout a lifetime. We can say this is our swabhava, our nature, whether we're devotional, whether we're more philosophical. Some of those things, Thakur says, let them stay. This is, uh, I think, what Sri Krishna means when he's telling this Arjuna, look, you're a warrior, that you can't help it. Your nature is going to make you fight in the war. And then there are other types of tendencies and things that we work on and change. That's that ability that we have through our spiritual practice, through our prayer and everything, that whatever bad habits that we have and whatever bad tendencies that we're trying to transform ourselves in spiritual life. If we have a tendency to anger, the tendency to lose our temper, tendency to be jealous, the tendency to be selfish, then we have to work on these things. We can't just say, "Oh, that's just the way I am," and just leave it that way. We have to feel that we have some power to change to a certain extent. And we see tremendous change. We've been reading about the life of Girish. Girish goes, how? He turned into such a saintly figure from being what he said was the worst imaginable sinner. Yeah. He says that you add up all of my sins, it'll be like the Himalayas. The drinking, carousing, all sorts of things, and how we became such a saintly person. Yeah. So sometimes it's really radical. We really see it. Now we can say that some scholar must have been there in the beginning, or we can say this is a special case. He's a playmate in this divine play of Sri Ramakrishna. But nevertheless, we see strong tendencies his whole life till he meets Ramakrishna, and that touch changes everything, and that companionship with him and how he changes remarkable. He used to say, "I'm Sri Ramakrishna's greatest miracle." But then he says, nothing can be achieved without discrimination and renunciation. So uh, this renunciation doesn't have to mean taking to monastic life. And discrimination, it doesn't have to be so harsh. It means that we have to uh, lead a dispassionate type of life. We have to be free from all these desires, yes, pulling us around, like a nose ring and a rope. Uh, the desires that just make us do whatever they want, but we have no control over anything. That this is a real tamasic and rajasic type of life. At least that we have to give up. Sri Ramakrishna had now regained full consciousness of the world, and he continued. There are many kinds of renunciation. One of them may be called Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation. It is a false renunciation stimulated by the afflictions of the world. Why monkey? Because this monkey can sometimes sit very still, perfectly still and quiet, huh? As it lost in meditation or something. But mind is churning, planning and scheming. Yeah, I'll jump on this person. I'll steal this person's glasses, this person's shoes. I'll get his food. Huh? So it looks like perfectly calm and peaceful and everything, but mind is constantly thinking. So this is one type of viragya. It's not renunciation at all. It is a false renunciation, stimulated by the afflictions of the world. So this is another thing that Sri Ramakrishna says, that there are some, they can't find a job. They're going from place to place. Then they say, it's too much. Let me renounce everything. They go off to Benares. He says, there somebody offers them a job, so they write home, oh, good news, I got a job. Yeah, I'll send money back. I'll be there. So that renunciation doesn't last long. Sometimes he would say it's like sprinkling drops of water on a red hot frying pan. That's how long it lasts. Then there is real renunciation. A man with everything in the world, lacking nothing, feels all to be unreal. So Swamiji used to say, what is the renunciation of a beggar? That we have to have something to renounce. We should have some, if we're young, some prospects in life, some talent, some ability and everything, that if we wanted to, we could be successful in life, have a good career and family and everything. And then giving it up, it means something. And those who come to spiritual life or monastic life because they have no prospects, that this way I have a nice place to live, I'll get food and everything. I don't have to worry about finding a job. This is no renunciation at all. Now we get this other idea. It is not possible to acquire renunciation all at once. The time factor must be taken into account. Now, if he sees all of the people there that are not ready to hear any of this, why is he telling them all this? He'll explain. But it is also true that a man should hear about it. When the right time comes, he will say to himself, oh, yes, I heard about this. Yeah. So this is planting a seed. He knows that it may not take right away, but in the future it may take. You must also remember another thing. By constantly hearing about renunciation, one's desire for worldly objects gradually wears away. Now, this is not true for very worldly people. Those who really they can't bear hearing about renunciation. They don't understand it. They don't appreciate it. They would rather just enjoy. But with Sri Ramakrishna, his idea of renunciation is completely different. That sometimes we think renunciation means just giving up, but his vairagya was this tremendous longing for God. This is why I always go back to this idea of pushing the head underwater. That it's both. One is that unbearable to remain immersed in water. That's that vairagya, unbearable. We want to get rid of it, but tremendous longing for a breath of air. So they have to go together. Anuraga, this tremendous love, this tremendous longing, vyakulata, for some type of realization or even escape. if we look upon this world as a raging forest fire, but there's nothing to escape to, it's just a forest fire, then wanting to give it up, it doesn't mean much. But if we know that there's an ocean of nectar just outside, and we long for that, well, that's the real renunciation. So always this combination for Sri Ramakrishna. Very rarely does he talk about renunciation without this vairagya and anuraga, and this love of God, or love for truth, or spiritual practice, or self-realization, something higher. So you must also remember another thing. By constantly hearing about renunciation, one's desire for worldly objects gradually wears away. Why? Because this renunciation, we're giving up a small thing for a big thing. And if we understand that there's joy in renunciation, there's joy in giving something up, there's joy in being freed from desire for things, there's joy in having nothing, then we understand that this renunciation is not a negative thing, it's a very positive thing. That this vairagya, it can grab hold of somebody. And we read about that. Some of us, we feel a little bit of it before we join. Otherwise, we won't join. Some feeling that renunciation just consumes us and pulls us away, so that the world automatically loses its joy for us. And we feel this renunciation is somehow almost a goal in itself. Almost a goal in itself. To be able to throw everything off. Then we feel it's a type of freedom. But throwing everything off also means ignorance and ego and all of that. It's not a simple thing. It's not the formal type of thing. But being able to cast everything off. Like the joy that the bird feels when the fish drops out of its mouth. All the other crows leave. And now it can just fly in its glory. Free from everything hanging on to it. That type of renunciation, if one feels that, and then of course the desire for worldly things won't fall off automatically all at once. This is the sad part of spiritual life, that the old mind still clings to us a little, and the old mind will still fight. The old mind will still say, "No, enjoy it. So a few crows are there. So what? It's worth it. It's a good, tasty fish." Old mind will do that. But if we can get past that, then a little bit of freedom we feel. So you must also remember another thing. By constantly hearing about renunciation, one's desire for worldly objects gradually wears away. So he's stressing here the time factor. This is a continuation of that. One should take rice water in small doses to get rid of the intoxication of liquor. Then one gradually becomes normal. An aspirant entitled to the knowledge of God is very rare. Now, this knowledge of God, Brahmagyana, huh? You reading the Bengali? Yeah. This knowledge of God here, I don't think that he's making a big distinction between devotion and knowledge here. I think he's just trying to say that those who are really fit for the highest realization. So we have to accept that. And he'll quote from the Gita, how very few, or the song, out of 100,000 kites, at best but one or two break free. We have to accept that this type of God realization that these great saints have is something rare. Now, attaining that state of desirelessness at the end of life is definitely within our grasp. If we really lead a very sincere spiritual life, that we can expect that at the very end, these desires will all leave at that time. And if the whole life we're thinking of God or spiritual ideal, that'll come at the end. That's a different thing. Not completely different, but a little bit different. Now we're talking about those who really will have some full-on enlightenment experience, some perfectly transcendent experience, transforming experience, either the samadhi or some type of divine ecstasy. That's a rare thing, even among some of the great sadhus that we see. That they may have these things in personal things that they don't talk about. That's also possible. But this now he's talking about this knowledge of God is really the highest type of experience. And aspired entitled to the knowledge of God is very rare. It is said in the Gita that 1 in thousands desire to know God, and again, that among thousands who have such a desire, only one is able to know him. A devotee quoted the text from the Gita. Master, as your attachment to the world diminishes, your spiritual knowledge will increase. So the obstacle to spiritual knowledge is not so much ignorance as it is attachment. There's another thing that we have to realize at some point, that it's not that the mind is not sharp enough. It's not that the intellect has to be made a little bit clearer. Is that we have attachment and we have worldly desires. This is the impediment. Otherwise, this wisdom and knowledge automatically will come. It's a natural thing. We have that within us. We're carrying it within us. We have to just get rid of these obstacles. Not a question of the intellect. So as your attachment to the world diminishes, your spiritual knowledge will increase. That means the spiritual stature, wisdom, and everything. Attachment to the world means attachment to lust and gold. It is not given to everybody to feel prema. Now, we'll stop here because it's a little different story. But what Sri Ramakrishna is going to do here is show the similarity between the path of knowledge and the path of devotion, that also there are heights of devotion that are reserved for these great souls who come from time to time. And again, we may not get them, we don't need them. As Sri Ramakrishna says, a few drops of liquor will get us drunk. Why should we worry that, somebody else can drink so much and we can't? We don't have to. And a little bit will suffice for us. So this will be the next section where he'll talk about this not given to everybody to feel prema. This is the highest type of ecstatic love of God that makes someone completely forget the world. This is what we see in the life of Chaitanya Deva, in the life of some of the other great saints, the life of Sri Ramakrishna, of course. So we're stopping on page 502 towards the bottom. This is that festival at Adhar's house. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatadavikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto all.